Welcome, everybody, to a slightly later edition of WCW 1993 with no Eric Bischoff, as it's time to start the Starrcade as we're out of Halloween Havoc. So we're at WCW Saturday Night, live from Atlanta, Georgia, and we start with stills from Halloween Havoc, focusing on Sid defeating Sting and Cactus Jack getting the big world title victory over Vader, obviously by the replay. This gets 67 because there's, some opening stills. Then we go to the ring. Or in our opening match, Kamala wins a squash over Eric Watts in 5:55 by pinfall in Air Africa. This gets a 55. Keeping Kamala over on TV for the last little bit of his contract until he actually has a final match, probably at the Clash, because his contract is done at basically the end of the month, and he's not re-signing a new one because he's a freelancer. But 55, perfectly solid. Kamala gets a 62. Eric Watts gets a 35. Then Kamala celebrating gets a 73. Then we have another quick squash, as any by decent reaction of the crowd, but subpar wrestling. Shane Douglas defeated Rip Rogers in 6:50 by pinfall. This gets a 50. Douglas gets a 48. Rip Rogers gets a 43. Continuing the slow push for Douglas, as we're probably going to keep him around once his contract runs out, as opposed in real life when he got let go. But I'm not Eric Bischoff, so I'm not going to let him go. But yeah, solid match, gets a win, and then Douglas celebrates, which gets a 53. Then we have Clash of the Champions hype, which basically focuses on the fact that the new world champion Cactus Jack and Sting will be teaming up to take on an unnamed team. And this gets a 68. Not a mystery team, just their opponents have not been announced quite yet. Then we have a Sid promo, which gets a 78, as basically, goes over he's still the master and ruler of the world, and that he deserves a world title shot, not somebody who actually lost at Halloween Havoc, because he defeated Sting. He proved he's the master and ruler of the world. He defeated the British Bulldog. He's defeated everybody who's been put in for him, and he will defeat the world champion too, especially if it's some slob like Cactus Jack, because nobody can defeat him, because he's the master and ruler of the world. Solid stuff. Then we have a squash match where JW Storm and Van Hammer continue their tag team push, defeating Joey Maggs and Robbie V in 7:08. When Van Hammer defeated Robbie V with slingshot suplex, this gets a 48. Van Hammer gets a 38. Storm gets a 53. Robbie V gets a 40, and Joey Maggs gets a 34. And then, of course, Storm and Hammer play air guitar afterwards to a 42. Again, keeping them as a sort of undercard tag team for the moment, without much to do, but still giving them consistent wins on the undercard. And then Dustin Rhodes with the international world title, basically does a promo where he says, call this world title whatever you want, but it proves that I am a world champion, and I will defend against anybody who thinks they can get this belt off of me. I've been called, Dusty's little boy. But what I am is a natural, and at Halloween Havoc, I proved that by defeating Wyndham, and I proved that by having this belt around my waist, so I'll face any opponent you want. 72, perfectly solid promo. And a decent match, the British Bulldog defeated the Gambler in 6:47 by pinfall with a military press slam, just a straight head squash for Bulldog. This gets a 58. Bulldog gets a 76. Gambler gets a 32. And then Bulldog celebrating afterwards gets a 69. So it's a straightforward win, as, he did do the job to Sid, but he's back on the comeback trail, I guess, after this. We have a big promo, as it's a Cactus Jack promo. It basically says, this isn't about... This isn't about the man from Cruiser Quonks, Wednesday's New Mexico. This is about the man from Long Island who saw Jimmy Snuka fly off a cage. This is about the man who was told he'd never make it. This is about the man who would kill himself for victory. Because I'm bled, had broken bones, and almost killed myself for this business. I've wrestled all over the world. I've wrestled in front of dingy high school gyms and in front of millions of people on pay-per-view. And last night I proved that, Vader, you're a tough SOB, but you're tough OC being defeated. And I proved that at Halloween Havoc, and I'll continue to prove it, and that's why I'm the most unlikely world champion in history. Bang bang. 80, really good promo, as it seems like Cactus is, good at that whole talking thing. Weird. Then about that good heating, decent wrestling, Rotor Hawk defeated Bill Irwin in 7:56 by pinfall. This gets 66, Hawk gets a 70 despite being injured, and Irwin gets a 47. Then Hawk cuts a quick promo, which gets a 69. Nice, does his whole over to rush thing, says, Rick Rude got lucky. He barely beat me to fit my bum shoulder, but I'm still here to die on danger and dance with death, and even a little banged up, I'll still go to war with anyone because I'm a road warrior. Then we have an interesting Flamingo in with Too Cold Scorpio and Ron Simmons. Flamingo goes over the fact that Simmons and Scorpio have been named the #1 contenders by WCW officials. when Vegas make fun of that, that's, they haven't been very impressive than them, and, Vinnie Vegas isn't actually a champion, so he should be considered the number one contendership. Of course, that gets in an argument. Simmons points out he almost beat Vegas before. Vegas, sort of says that, says, I had you all on hand, it was all part of the plan. Flamingo says something snarky about, Simmons going from a world champion to be a tag team chump. And, this continues the argument, and next week, it's set for a tag team match next week between these two teams. As this gets a 65. Perfectly solid stuff, especially considering, Scorpio's not the best promo guy, and Simmons is only meh. And then, in a both had good heat and decent wrestling, Chris Benoit defeated the Barbarians 10-06 with a diving headbutt. This got a 72, which was shockingly good. Then I looked down and realized Benoit and Barbarian had pretty good chemistry. So that's a positive. But yeah, really good match for one half of the World Tag Team Champions. And then Benoit celebrates, which gets a 64. And there we go. We move forward. And then in our main event, which is just basically a quasi-squash, well, not really squash, but basically a main eventers versus mid-carders match. As Annie Bell had great heat and good wrestling, the Iron Horsemen of Arn Anderson, Barry Windham, and Steve Austin defeated Johnny B. Bad, Marty Jannetty, and Marcus Bagwell in 13:36. When Windham pinned Marty Jannetty with a superplex, this gets a 75. Austin gets a 72. Windham gets a 77. Anderson gets a 79. Bagwell gets a 44. Marty Jannetty gets a 59. And Johnny B. Bad gets a 56. Overall, solid stuff. Then we have our closing thing, which is the Iron Horseman doing a promo. Basically, Arn congrats Flair sort of sarcastically, you got the win, but you got the win you always have, and you didn't prove anything. You didn't prove that this isn't still time for the future. You proved that you could hit me with a low blow and roll me up. Wow. Big deal. You never proved you were actually better than me, so I'm still looking for the future to these men who will create the future world champion for wrestling with me. And you will fade away. Desperate. Then Austin and Pillman go ahead and make fun of Sting Steamboat, says, it's time to put them out to pasture. We're on our own now, but we're still ready to roll the tape and cut a trailer, and I will tear you apart bit by bit inside of that ring, and that it's time for Stunning Steve Austin and Brian Pillman to be at the top of the wrestling world, just where they belong, and to be shown in starlight. Solid promo, gets an 80, and there we go. And overall, we get a 75, solid stuff. Again, just a post-pay-per-view show. Clash of Champions is in a couple weeks, but, it's Clash, so it's not like a big show that you got to hype the main event anyway. Super bad. People just know Cactus and Sting will be facing a team, which will announce the team next week. And, of course, pushing all, the undercard stuff, the tag teams title stuff, the Horseman Flair feud, Bulldog getting wins, and, Cactus Jack as a new world champion. But I'll be back in a second with the second show of the taping. Alright, time for the second show of the taping, as we got WCW Saturday Night still in Atlanta, Georgia, and we start with Big Van Vader and Rick Rude coming out together along with Sherry Martel, and basically they put over the fact that they're the actual opponents for Cactus Jack and Sting at Clash of the Champions, coming in just a couple weeks. Rick Rude says, he says being the sexiest man in WCW and the best wrestler on this roster. He's been extracted and ignored, but at the Clash, in the main event against Sting and Cactus, he'll prove that he should have been in main events all along. Vader says he's the man. Yes, Cactus Jack beat him, but he couldn't beat him 1, 2, 3. He had to beat him around, he had to kill each other, and Cactus Jack still barely kept me down for a 10 count. So if I get in the ring one more time, he's roadkill. Because we're the baddest things running in World Championship Wrestling, and after the Clash, obviously we'll have no chance to give one of us the world title shot, and that's one man is going to be me, Vader. Rude says, we'll see about that. As there's a 10 stare down, but, they both then, shake hands as we move on and set up that match for the Clash. So we'll pre-book that match real quick. We move forward with our opening match of the night, as in about that detraction from the crowd, but Sapar Wrestling, Jack Rougeau wins the squash over Barrio in 640 by submission with a Quebec grab. This gets a 57. Rougeau gets a 64. Barrio gets a 35. As I continue Rougeau's sort of mid-card push to keep him, in sort of that mid-card battle, just, rise to the top and maybe eventually get a bigger shot. But this gets a 57. And then Rougeau waves Quebec flag afterwards to a 55. Then we have an about that detraction from the crowd, but Sapar Wrestling, Johnny B. Bad defeats a Vampire Warrior in 7-12 by pinfall with Wild Thing. Vampire Warrior gets a 30. Johnny B. Bad gets a 62. Solid match. This gets a 54 overall, as Bad gets the big win and a bit of a comeback. And then afterwards, he says, Regal's a bad man, but he wants another shot at him because he wants to win that U.S. title for the fans, and because he used brass knucks to keep the title. But if Regal wants to get in a brawl, he'll prove that these golden gloves don't need brass knucks to knock you out, buddy. And 60, solid promo for Bad as we move forward. As at a good match, the Hollywood Blondes team up to defeat Mike Graham and Brad Armstrong in 747 when Austin pinned Graham with a stun gun. Weird. I swear I can talk words, really. This gets a 61 overall. Brad Pillman gets an 83. Austin gets a 74. Armstrong still gets a 60. And Mike Graham gets a 46. And then post-match, we have the Blondes celebrating to get a 67. Just to remind them, they are a tag team. They are quite good. And they don't need to cheat to win, at least against lower talent. Then we have Missy Hyatt doing a backstage promo with Steven Regal. It gets a 67. He of course, in his silly English, English accent, of course I'm a bloody bad man. I'll keep this supposed U.S. title any way I can to prove the supremacy of the crown in British wrestling. So if Bad thinks he can actually defeat me, talk to WCW officials and get in the ring, and I'll just defeat him once, just like I did, and prove that I am the greatest in-ring wrestler in this promotion. 67, perfectly solid run. Then we had about the Good Heat and Decent Wrestling. Marty Jannetty defeated Max Payne in 10:57 by pinfall. The Rocket Dropper. This gets a 63. Payne gets a 60. Jannetty gets a 55. Really straightforward win for Jannetty to get him over as part of the mid card, and then Jannetty celebrates to get a 58. Then in a basic squash, Sting defeats Samoan Savage in 7:47 by submission with Scorpion Deathlock. Samoan Savage tries to fight back a little bit, but Sting is Sting, so he hits the big Stinger Splash, then locks on the Deathlock, and Savage has nowhere to go. This gets a 61. Sting gets an 81, so Savage gets a 55. Then we have a Sting promo where he basically says, Pillman, you talk a real big game, buddy, but I remember when we drove together, we were just a young pup. Pawn at guys like me and Flair, thinking, talk about your football background and, but wanting a lot of pointers from Ed Leahy, but you think just because now you're talking to a loudmouth like Austin in your ear, and you've got Arn Anderson and Wyndham bigging you up, you think you're at the top of the game. Well, you want to dance? We can dance, but at the moment I've got two bad men named Vader and Rude in the way. I focus on them, but after that, well, let's talk about that later. 73, perfectly solid promo for Sting. Then a decent match, but it gets a 49, because basically this is their fourth time together, and unfortunately it didn't quite do as well as the other matches. Scorpio and Simmons drew with Vegas and Flingo in 13-3 following a double countout. I honestly probably just should have given one of these teams a win, and that might have saved things. Simmons gets a 66, Scorpio gets a 58, Flingo gets a 47, Vegas gets a 54. 54, yeah. And then they brawl afterwards to get a 53. So that probably kind of tanked the show, which I probably should have known about. But, sometimes you gotta take risk. Oh well, shit happens, what can you do? Then we had our main event, which gets an 82, which is good. As an about had fantastic heat and great wrestling, Arn Anderson and Barry Windham defeated the British Bulldog and Dustin Rhodes in 1933 when Arn defeated Bulldog with a spinning spinebuster after the distraction from Steve Austin. So Austin comes down, distracts Rhodes for just long enough for Arn Anderson probably to hit a low blow, then hit spinebuster, then get the pinfall. But this gets an 82, so a really good main event as Windham gets a 75, Arn gets an 81, Dustin gets a 75, and British Bulldog gets a 79 as Bulldog and Rhodes have excellent chemistry teaming together. And then post-match we have a 4-on-2 as Iron Horsemen go for the beatdown, but Ric Flair runs in with a chair, running them off as he, yells at Arn, that I'm coming for you, and that this isn't over, as this gets a 76, and the show overall gets a 77. So still a really good show, really saved by that main event, and that we had some decent mid-card matches. But yeah, we're really building Clash of the Champions. We got the big main event. You can probably figure out some other matches, but remember, it's a Clash, so it's not going to be lots of big main event matches, but really building towards Starrcade. But that's it for the moment, so I'll be back in just a second with the last episode of Saturday Night before the Clash. Alright, now time for the last show before Clash of the Champions, as it's time for Saturday Night, as we start off with the announcers going over the fact that we've got a Havoc rematch tonight as Barry Windham will get a chance to take back his International World title as he takes on Dustin Rhodes. This gets a 70 to open things up. Then we go to the ring, where Ricky Steamboat defeats Robbie V in 8:23 by pinfall with a diving crossbody. This gets a 64. Steamboat is really good. Steamboat gets a 79. Robbie V gets a 39. Then he cuts a promo on Austin, basically saying, Austin, you talk a big game, you and Pillman, you talk about your greatest tag team, and yes, we admit, you have to win over me and Sting and Havoc, but the reality is, I've won a lot, I've lost a lot. I was wrestling when you were in diapers. That doesn't mean I'm old, that means I have experience, and I'm used to making a comeback. So if you think you can really take me on, face me in the ring, well, see me after the Clash. 70, perfectly solid promo. Then about that decent from the crowd, but Subpar Wrestling, the Powers of Pain defeated Joey Mags and Rip Rogers in 7:26 when the Warlord pinned Joey Mags with a ring power slam. This gets a 39. Rogers gets a 42. Joey Mags gets a 33. Warlord gets a 55. Rory gets a 56. Perfectly okay match, but just, puts over the Powers of Pain as a still a dominant factor, even though they lost the match at Halloween Havoc. Then post-match, Rory and Warlord celebrate. They get a 48. Then Benoit and Eden cut a backstage promo, putting over they are the World Tag Team Champions. They don't care who they face at Starrcade or in the future, because they proved they're already the best tag team in the ring, and it doesn't matter, whether it's two guys like Scorpion Simmons or two guys like Vegas and Flamingo. They'll take the fight to whomever and prove that they're the best. 62, solid promo. Then, they put over the fact that at the Clash it's going to be Ron Simmons versus Vinnie Vegas, where Vegas will put up his TV titles, and Simmons will put up the number one contendership of Simmons and Scorpio. So it gets a 54. And then in a bout that Good Heat Needs Wrestling, Sid defeated Barrio in 5:41 by pinfall with a choke slam. This gets a 60. I basically made it too long. I should have made this a 3-minute squash. But, you live and learn. This gets 60. Sid gets an 83. Barrio gets a 32. And then Sid cuts in the promo that he's still the master and ruler of the world, and that after the Clash of the Champions, there's no way WCW will deny him his chance at the title. This gets a 67, perfectly solid stuff. Then we move forward as Scotty Flamingo defeats Shane Douglas in 7:45. It says by using foreign object, basically he just used the rope, hits roll up, puts his foot on the rope. So this gets a 42. Douglas gets a 47. Flamingo gets a 48. Little ding because there's no storyline, but what can you do? And then Flamingo cuts an in-ring, which it's a 55. Says, he promises at a Clash, not only will my man Vinnie Vegas keep the TV title, but will the tag title shot. And after the Starrcade, it's going to be double gold all over. As I'll have gold, Vegas will have more gold, and will prove that diamonds are forever. Note that truly, we don't roll, we don't roll hard. We only roll to win. And this gets a 55. Solid stuff. And then more Clash hype as puts over a big tag team match that is going to be the British Bulldog and Dustin Rhodes taking on Steve Austin and Brian Pillman. So I'll book that in real quick. As it's Steve Austin, Brian Pillman, Dustin Rhodes, the British Bulldog. And then we have a Ric Flair promo. We're basically seeing us for doing zero stuff. He gets serious and says, I'm really just tired of your whining arm. How many sure shots, belt shots, Lobos have we both used for years from town to town, all over this country, all over the world, damn it. I'm the dirtiest player in the game, and at Starrcade, I want to touch you up once for all. It doesn't matter what you do, you'll always be the second banana Arn. You may think you're the Horsemen, but those young bucks, they're looking to kick you out the moment they can. They're vicious animals. Because, I know this because I've been that before. So just be worried, Arn. But don't be worried of me. Worried about your buddies. And this gets 90 because Ric Flair is really good at cutting promos. Then in a decent match, Johnny B. Bad defeated One Man Gang in 10:15 by pinfall the Wild Thing. So, One Man Gang does his brawling thing, Bad fights back, and in the end, Bad is able to hit the big move and get the pinfall victory. This gets a 51. Bad gets a 61. Gang gets a 53. And then post-match, of course, Steven Regal just waylays Bad with the brass knucks. And after that, we get an official announcement. Is it going to be Regal versus Bad one more time at Clash of the Champions for the television title? And that's for the U.S. title. What am I talking about? and that gets a 59. Then in our semi-main, and about that great heat and good wrestling, Cactus Jack and Sting team up to defeat Max Payne and 717 to 10-15 when Cactus Jack pinned Max Payne with a pulling pile driver. This gets a 51, Sting gets an 81, Cactus Jack gets a 78, Savage gets a 54, Max Payne gets 62. I forgot to add a storyline to this. Oh well, not the end of the world. What can you do? I mean, actually do things correctly, but again, what can you do? And then post-match we have a Cactus and Sting promo. It says we're different men from different world, but rather we know how to fight together. And at Clash we're going to fight against two bad men who think they can tear us apart, but we're going to show them we can work together. And it doesn't matter what you do. We're bad. We're just as bad as you. Ow! And Cactus Jack says, "Bang bang! I'm the world champion. Sting's a franchise, and there's nothing we can't do as a tag team. So Vader, bring your brawl in. Rick Rude, you may be sexy, but I'm the world champ." Bang, bang. 83. There we go. Solid stuff. And then in our main event, in an awesome match, and in Bath had a fantastic great wrestling, Dustin Rhodes defeated Barry Windham, and I'm a moron. I forgot they're not part of the same storyline anymore. God damn it. Oh well, what can you do? Dustin Rhodes defeated Barry Windham in 7:38 by pinfall, the running Bulldog. Rhodes makes defense number 1 of his WCW International World Title. It lost heat. It was the crowd is burning out. So this gets a 68. But then, wow, this was a bad initial show. So basically what happens is Rhodes stands off the Iron Horseman, and then Bulldog comes out to help him, and I forgot to rate any of these guys in like entertainment or charisma or anything. So yeah, that was dumb. This gets a 58 though still, and the show itself gets a 71. So, not the end of the world, but still a perfectly okay show. Stuff happens. And we'll look over the news real quick, and then we'll be back with Clash, and that'll be the video. Alright, so Ventura thinks Marty Jannetty does not connect with the fans, and Roy Hawk wants, yes. So yeah, you'll be back in just a second with Clash of the Champions. Okay, it's now time for WCW Clash of the Champions, live from the Rupp Arena in Kentucky, where we got 20,000 people, so let's get rolling with the actual show. As we start off with Jesse, Tusky, and Tony going over, the big aspects of the show, including the 2 big tag matches, the Vinnie Vegas Rod and Simmons match, and more. And we go to the ring as this opening stuff gets a 72, so let's get rolling. As Sid does a promo where basically, he calls out anybody when out comes Kamala. Yeah. So it's like, okay, this is 72. I just need something for Sid to go over. So anyway, Kamala turns face on basically his last night in the territory. In the actual match, though, Sid kills Kamala in 5:46 with the powerbomb. This gets a 55. Sid gets a 75. Kamala gets a 57. And then Sid hits the powerbomb again. Again, to get a 67, as announcers really put over the fact that this is an impressive victory for him, and really WC officials have to look to him as the number 1 contender unless something very interesting happens in the main event. 67, big one for Sid. And then in a Battle of Good Heat and Decent Wrestling, Steve Austin defeats Shane Douglas in 6:59 by pinfall with a stun gun. This gets a 69, Austin gets a 73, Shane Douglas gets a 46. And then Austin goes to killify Douglas, but Steamboat makes a save, as he makes a save for his long time, his partner from earlier this year, and also because Austin has been a jerk for basically the last couple months, of course, in feuding with Steamboat as part of the Blondes, and of course when Steamboat was teaming with Flair and Sting. So this gets a 66, as this long-time feud, basically this gone all year, continues. Then our U.S. title match. And about like Good Heat and Decent Wrestling, Steven Regal defeats Johnny Bad in 9:41 by pinfall the Regalplex. This is a total sprint match. Everybody taking their big moves, big suplexes. Bad hits a few high flyers. Regal's able to actual clean victory right in the middle of the ring. Nothing to deny about it. Regal just gets the clean victory. Yeah, he doesn't get the clean victory. He hits the brass necks, then he hits but they still hits the suplex afterward to get the pinfall victory. And he makes defense number 3 as U.S. title. This gets 64. Regal gets a 58. Bad also gets a 58. But, I put it as an all-out match, and basically, just because this was also another match where they could have got the penalty, but they didn't, so everybody's happy, and this gets 64, and then Regal celebrates afterwards to a 65. Good stuff. Then in a superb match, which gets a 71, Ric Flair defeats Jacques Rougeau in 7:55 by submission with a Figure 4 leg lock. So I sort of realized I was putting this together of the show that Flair's just not got, just a win. just a clean, straightforward win to remember people he's Ric Flair in a while. So we had this match, Shocker Joe's still up a prominent mid-carder, but Ric Flair's Ric Flair. So he gets the win with the figure 4 leg lock. Flair gets an 88, Joe gets a 63. And then we have a Flair Arn showdown where basically, Arn, looks like he's going to attack. But instead, he just sort of points at Flair, says, sort of shrugs at Rougeau winning. Flair yells back at him. And, the argument continues. And, basically, no actual mic talk. As we just hear him, Arn saying, "You're an old man, you got lucky." Flair says, "I'm still the man, and I'm going to prove it to you." As it gets an 83, as we really built, this storyline to a crescendo, probably at Starrcade, because, well, this is what pro wrestling. After all, you got to do what you got to do. And then in our big match to determine who gets TV title and then a one contender shift to the tag titles, well, I sort of messed things up a bit. I didn't mess things up, but I sort of screwed the fans a little bit. As in about good heat and decent wrestling, Ron Simmons defeated Vinnie Vegas, the TV champion, in 10:45 by pinfall spinebuster. This gets a 68. So Vegas gets a 53, Simmons gets a 68 because he's that good. But then, post-match, the referee hands the title over to Vegas as it's basically announced that, yes, Ron Simmons has kept the tag title shot, but because the match went over 10 minutes, Vinnie Vegas keeps the TV title. Crowd slightly boos it. Probably somebody on the nascent internet in 1983 rips the angle, but, had to give a way to give Simmons the win without being just a quasi, DQ. And this is quite slightly bullshit, but, not the end of the world. And this gets a 69. Nice. And then in about had fantastic heat and great wrestling, the Hollywood Blondes of Austin and... Oh, shit. I'm a moron. I can't believe I had Austin wrestle twice. That is the dumbest thing I've done in a while. Okay. Just pretend that was Barry Windham, I guess, in the opening match. Son of a bitch. I can't believe I did that. Okay, anyway, about to have fantastic heat and great wrestling. Hollywood Blondes defeated Dustin Rhodes and the British Bulldog in 1947 when Pillman pinned the British Bulldog with an air Pillman after Bulldog and Rhodes miscommunicated. So it looks like Rhodes and Bulldog are going together well, but Bulldog wants the big win, so he basically tags himself in near the end. But Rhodes tries to makes a save, but basically Rhodes runs in the Bulldog. That's enough for Pillman to hit the big air Pillman and gets a pinfall victory. This gets a 73. Pillman gets an 81. Austin gets a 74. Bulldog gets a 79. Rhodes gets a 74. And yeah, so a big win for the Blondes. And then post-match, Bulldog and Rhodes are arguing post-match when out of nowhere, Bulldog just clotheslines Rhodes to hell, picks him up, hits the power slam, and then walks away. My God, it's a heel turn. Bulldog's a heel. So yes, the former world champion, remember, because Bulldog was a world champion here earlier this year, has just turned on the international world champion right in the middle of the ring here at the Clash. Gets a 71, really solid angle, and yeah, sort of had to balance things out a little bit. And then in our main event, an exceptional match, Cactus Jack and Sting defeated Vader and Rude in 1457 when Jack pinned Vader with a double arm DDT. So, this is your back and forth US Pro style match. Cactus Jack makes a big baby safe run at the end, and him and Vader brawl, but Jack is just a little bit better. And Rude, I don't say ignores the tag partner, but just basically, is brawling with Sting on the outside. And Jack is able to hit the big double arm DDT and get the pinfall victory over Vader. So this gets a 75. And then the post-match ends with basically Vader and Rude arguing on the outside, just sort of pushing each other. When Sid comes out, points at Cactus Jack, who has the world title, on his shoulder, and Jack just sort of, does the bang motion and, brings him in as the show ends. So overall, this gets a 75. Good stuff. So we'll give Steve Austin, give example for wrestling twice, even though I was a dumbass. British Bulldog. And also just because it was a shockingly good match in the opener. No, not Ricky Steamboat. Because it was a better match than I expected. Steven Regal. So we'll see if there's any news, and then we'll close things out here in a second. Everybody says. Okay. Okay. 147 TV rating, up for renewal. Yeah, okay. Okay. So nothing huge. Yeah, nothing huge. But I'll be back in just a second with base. We'll finish this up in just a second. Just go over things, and that'll be it for this video. So I just want to do a couple quick checks of some people as we go into the Starrcade period. So let's see here. Okay, so Pillman is really getting over. Like, Pillman is actually becoming close to a top guy. Cactus, thankfully, has built himself up to be a top guy, even though, yeah, his like overness is kind of topped out at the moment, which is kind of worrying. But I mean, like, I don't think it's much of a huge tell that says that like, he's not going to be a super long-term guy. Like, he's not our future top number one guy. Dustin, let's see here. Dustin is rounding out. Like, he's really building himself to be a top level guy. Let's see, Flair's still really over. Dropped a little bit just because he did a couple jobs, so what can you do? Sid, let's see, Sid's in his high 70s, low 80s. Yeah, so he's getting there. And then Sting, like, yeah, we're doing the rebuild thing on Sting. And Bulldog, after his heel turn, is hanging around 80. I don't think there's anybody else we really need to double check. Let's see here. Steamboat, not doing great, but I mean, it's his late career, so what can you do? And yeah, Austin. And there's memes on there you might have seen. You can ignore those, but anyway. So yeah, if we look at our storylines, mid-card battle storyline is at a 66. NWA title storyline, which includes now Rhodes and Bulldog, is at a 73. Tag title storyline, which is really just our Horseman storyline, is at an 80. US title storyline is at 64. Pillman Sting's at a 79, and the world title storyline, which will have some changes made to it in a little bit here, will be at a 76. So next up is Starrcade, and yeah, like, you can guess some like matches we're doing, but nothing official so far. But that'll be quickly be shown as we build things up. Probably because there's 5 shows. Probably when you do basically part 1 of the build in one video, then start the build Starrcade and post end of the year stuff, and then that's that. But that's it for now. So if you enjoyed this, go ahead and give it a like. Comment below on what you're liking and not liking, and subscribe to the channel for lots of other TEW 2020 content, including this, my MLW 2005 series, and my WCW 2001 series, also hitting short Starrcade, but that's Starrcade 2003. But that's it for now, so if you enjoyed the show, go ahead, and talk to you later. Adios.